Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin here in Nigeria. An unspecified number of inmates have reportedly escaped from the correctional center located on Customs Road, Abaganaram, Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. This happened this morning when the fence of the correctional center caved in as a result of the flood that ravaged the city since Monday. Eyewitness account says some inmates were killed in the flooding while trying to escape. There are also reports of sporadic shooting by prison officials who made desperate efforts to stop the inmates from fleeing. Well, the governor, Professor Babagana Zulum, had been away from the state, had to cut short his trip to return to address the situation in this state. As a result of the flooding, also, major roads and shops within Maiduguri metropolis and parts of Jere local government area have been submerged by water. Oh, a devastating flood in Kafanchan, Jema local government area of Kaduna State has claimed the lives of 2 children, washed away farmlands, and also displaced hundreds of people following heavy rain which occurred in the area some days ago. The vice chairman of Jema local government area, Mrs. Christy Usman, made the disclosure when the Kaduna State Flood Assessment Committee, led by the Chief of Staff to Governor Uba Sani, Mr. Sani Kila, visited the area to assess the impact of flooding in the southern part of the state.
The rainy season is getting to its peak, with predictions from NIMET of potential flooding in some states across the country and continuous reminders for communities to be on alert. Kaduna, located in northwest zone, is among the states predicted to witness flooding, and so far, Sabangari, Zaria, Kaduna North, Jama local government areas already seeing the signs of what's to come. Floodwaters is taking over roads in some communities, leading residents to resort to use of wooden canoes to access their communities. The Kaduna State Assessment Committee on Flood, led by the Chief of Staff to Governor Uba Sani, Mr. Sani Kila, visited some of the affected areas to assess the impact of the flood and to also provide support as well as sensitize the people on some environmental safety measures to mitigate potential flooding.
We'll be running to highland. I hear me now. If they just come in like that, everybody will be running out of. Like now, we'll pack, we just leave. We run to highland. So that after maybe 1 hour, 30 minutes, everybody will come back. But nobody will dare this. You cannot even stay here that time.
Going by what we have seen and what we have heard, it is really very pathetic. It's sad. Although it's a natural disaster, but there is need for urgent intervention. Intervention in terms of relief materials to the victims here, and intervention in a way of finding out both medium and long-term solutions to flooding here.
The committee also visited Kafanchan in Jama local government area, where 2 children were killed by heavy flooding some days ago. The flood also affected farmlands at Jangiri, Atuku, Aso and Bade wards.
We have places like Jagindi, Aso ward, all those areas are affected. You see, their farmlands are washed away by this flood. So I'm sure the government is going to do something. We thank the Chief of Staff for representing the governor here.
It is not actually easy. Government cannot do it alone. The community leaders, the religious leaders, I and you must team up and support as well as complement the effort of the government in making sure that disasters like this are being avoided.
In Sanga local government, 5 communities were cut off due to collapsed bridge, while some houses came down due to the heavy rainfall.
Came up around July, end of July. There was a heavy downfall, and as a result of the downfall, so many places were touched, especially this village. I came here that day when they reported to me. I saw it briefly on the road like this, and I passed to the office. Now that we've gone around, I've seen actually what happened. The whole issue is because of lack of water, lack of drainage.
Sometimes it will be because of our carelessness, we refuse to abide by the rules and regulations set by the Kasubda, the ruling agency, or the agencies, or the the organ in charge of those planning. So we found that sometimes when one wants to build, we talk to him, he's saying, it is my land. I do whatever I feel like to do. But later on, he doesn't know the implication. So later on, when it comes like this, it will affect him, and then the government has to spend money that is supposed to be used in different things to complement the hardship faced by those affected by the flood.
While the assessment committee is expected to make its findings and recommendations to Governor Ubasani, the Kaduna State government is appealing to the federal government to support those already impacted by the flood disaster to complement the efforts of the state government.
Away from Nigeria, it's 1 year after Storm Daniel devastated Derna in Libya and surrounding cities in the country. This resulted in the deaths of over 5,000 people, and thousands of people were displaced. However, the city is slowly beginning to recover. Local efforts, bolstered by international aid, are helping Derna rebuild after the catastrophic storm.
When Storm Daniel made landfall on September the 10th, 2023, it unleashed extreme weather, strong winds and torrential rain across northeastern Libya, severely damaging critical infrastructure. Essential services like healthcare, electricity and telecommunications were disrupted, complicating relief efforts. Coordination challenges and conflicting reports further hampered the timely delivery of humanitarian aid. In the immediate aftermath, the Libyan Red Crescent coordinated the evacuation of people, provided first aid, and carried out search and rescue.
I see that my experience was important on two fronts after the disaster. On the one hand, for myself, my continuation in humanitarian work after the disaster helped me overcome part of the trauma I experienced during the flood. On the other hand, it also benefited the community because if there was no response from people working in civil society or humanitarian work in general, the situation would have been an even bigger disaster. So, I see it as a distinctive or good experience for both parties, whether for myself or for the community.
The country also called for international aid, with several governments offering financial assistance as well as teams of relief personnel. Several Libyans from neighboring cities also volunteered in the relief effort.
We received a great deal of assistance from the first hours, and most of the aid was humanitarian assistance from the United Nations, international organizations, and also local organizations. Since the Daniel events, we have moved to recovery. What we see is that people are still deserving or in need of some assistance, and we could say psychosocial support in the recovery phase.
A report by the World Bank, United Nations and European Union said the dam's collapse was partly due to their design based on outdated hydrological information and partly a result of poor maintenance and governance problems during Libya's conflict. Despite the significant damage, rebuilding efforts are underway with the focus on restoring critical infrastructure and providing ongoing support to the displaced.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator in Libya says the local community has shown resilience in the face of the challenges brought over the 1 year. Mrs. Georgette Gagnon says that the UN remains steadfast and committed in supporting efforts.
The local community has showed its resilience, its efforts to rebuild and reconstruct together with the local authorities, and the UN has been supporting these efforts and will continue to support the people of Derna and all those affected for as long as it takes to rebuild and reconstruct and take forward their lives after this devastating disaster.
The death toll continues to rise in Algeria and Morocco, according to officials, following deadly flooding caused by torrential rains, with more than 20 people dead and a dozen others missing in both countries after floods swamped villages in the normally arid region. In Morocco, homes have been destroyed and infrastructure, including roads, electricity, water supply and phone networks, damaged. The 2 days of storms over the weekend saw rain exceeding the annual average rainfall. Meanwhile, in Algeria, it's a similar situation, with bridges and train lines also damaged. The government has sent thousands of civil protection and military officers to help emergency response efforts and also to assist people trapped in their homes, even as rescue efforts continue in both countries. Tensions between Ethiopia and Egypt continue to escalate as the former is calling on the latter to abandon what it calls its aggressive approach towards a controversial hydroelectric dam on the River Nile. Addis Ababa was responding to a letter Egypt had sent to the UN Security Council last week, accusing Ethiopia of violating international law by continuing to fill the dam without agreement from downstream countries. In its letter to the Security Council, Ethiopia rejected what it called a litany of unfounded allegations from Cairo. Now, this is the latest round in a long-running dispute between both countries as Egypt forges closer military ties with Ethiopia's neighbor Somalia, which also has its own disagreement with Ethiopia. Now, the row dates back to 2011 when Ethiopia began building the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile, which is a tributary from where 85% of the Nile's waters flow. Former South African President Thabo Mbeki is not convinced that South Africa's economic challenges are caused by massive illegal immigration to the country. Speaking at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs at the University of South Africa in Pretoria, Mr. Mbeki highlighted the reasons behind the influx of African migrants to South Africa, offering a broader perspective on the issue. He advocates for a long-term, fundamental solution, such as providing a pathway to citizenship for migrants.
The economy is in crisis. I'm a former president of this country. And you'll never, ever convince me that this economy is in crisis because of foreigners. It's not true. It's not true. It's because there's certain things that have happened with regard to the economy, which have produced economic crisis, resulting, among other things, in unemployment. So we've got to solve this problem. We've got to deal with this economy and deal with these problems of unemployment. At the same time, the country has got laws about migration of people. Let's enforce the laws. You can't just come in illegally. So the thing about the registration of people undocumented is correct. But I'm saying, like we have an economic crisis, it's incorrect to think that that economic crisis is caused by people who have come from the rest of the world.
After 3 consecutive years of financial losses, Airports Company South Africa, ACSA, has made a significant turnaround, reporting a post-tax profit of 472 million rand for the 2023-2024 financial year. ACSA, which is 74.6% owned by the government, operates 9 airports across the country, including the major international hubs, the OR Tambo, Cape Town and Durban international airports. Well, the CEO, Mpofu, credits the achievement to the hard work and dedication of the entire team.
We've worked really hard to get this particular outcome, and part of that has been driven by our recovery and sustain strategy. We had fiscal discipline, which enabled us to cut costs and save on operating costs and capex up until this particular stage. And we also had an aggressive turnaround strategy that really needed to get us to increase aeronautical revenue, non-aeronautical revenue, to the extent that we've achieved the profit. Let me just indicate the key drivers of this success that we see today are really in the aeronautical revenue space, where we've gained 600 million through additional airlines that have committed, international airlines and domestic traffic, which has increased to the recovery point of 88% of our pre-2019 performance levels. In addition to that, our non-aeronautical revenue has also increased by 400 million, and that basically augurs well.
The man who caused the death of Ugandan Olympic athlete Rebecca Chapte by setting her on fire has died from more than 30% burns he sustained in the tragic event. Officials announced that Dixon Indiema died at the intensive care unit of a Kenyan hospital, where he was admitted after he ambushed the marathon runner as she returned home from church more than a week ago. A local administrator said the two had been in conflict over a small piece of land in northwest Kenya, where Chapte lived and trained. He allegedly poured petrol all over her body and set her ablaze. Mr. Indiema, Chapte's former boyfriend, was named as the main suspect and was to face murder charges. Well, Kenyans have been reacting to the death of the alleged killer, saying some of them believe justice has been served, but others say justice was denied.
For the death of the perpetrator, I can say justice has been done. Why is that? Perhaps if he could have been alive and taken to court, perhaps the victim would not have gotten justice. Perhaps he would have raised money and get out of police cells and eventually out of jail. And at the end of it all, the victim would not have get justice.
I think most of the people are happy now that the gentleman has passed away. Yeah. So watu wengi watachukulia, si watu wote wanachukulia the same. Yeah. But 100% are happy. Yeah. That it has become tit for tat.
Justice can't be served because the person who did the action is dead, right? You can't do a case with a dead person. And naturally, women are always disadvantageous. You know, there's this male chauvinism that's in the society. Like, how can a woman get so much money while the man, has nothing? So I think women need to be protected more in the society. How can we, the government needs to look into issues concerning women, such as gender-based violence and stuff.
I might assume he was not given proper medication. He should have been given a proper medication so that when he gets well, he'll be taken to, he'll be even in prison for life or will be punished, will be given a good punishment, so that in future he will act as an example to other people who might think taking law in their own hands is good. Justice was not given to Chapte.
Well, authorities in Guinea-Bissau say they have seized 2.63 tons of cocaine that was found on a plane at the capital's international airport. A police statement says the plane had come from Venezuela. Well, all 5 members of the crew have been detained, including the pilot. And among those in custody are 2 Mexicans, 1 Colombian, and Ecuadorian and Brazilian. On Saturday, at least 78 bales of cocaine were discovered, which local reports say is the largest drug seizure in the country's history. Well, the West African country is known as a key transit point in global drug trafficking, and this has led to the UN calling the country a narco state. As the Beijing summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation ends in Nigeria, representatives of both countries are building on the renewed tie to benefit both the public and private sectors in the country. The meeting, which was in Lagos had the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Consulate General of the People's Republic of China in Lagos, as well as players in the financial services.
Director of Cheshin Company.
The Consulate General of the People's Republic of China in Lagos has worked with the private sector to organize this symposium tagged the Lagos Forum. This is to further discussions and implementation of agreement at the recently concluded Beijing summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, which highlighted the roles played by President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria and President Xi Jinping of China during the summit.
The recent Forum on China-Africa Cooperation FOCAC has ushered in a new era, marking a significant upgrade in our partnership to a comprehensive strategic collaboration. This evolution promises to unlock unprecedented opportunities for growth, development, and mutual prosperity.
Past gains, future benefits come for both countries.
The practical cooperation has been highly fruitful. China-Africa trade volume has increased from $10.5 billion in 2000 to $282.1 billion in 2023, nearly a 26-fold increase. Direct Chinese investment stock in Africa has grown from less than $500 million in 2000 to over $40 billion today. Over the years, China and Africa have constructed and upgraded nearly 100,000 kilometers of highways, over 10,000 kilometers of railways.
Even more collaboration because of the geographic position of Nigeria, especially Lagos State.
The country has the potential to become the manufacturing hub for China, for West and Central Africa. We believe we have the geographical location in West and Central Africa and the facilities, some of which was also built by the Chinese, the Lekki Deep Seaport, and all the other facilities that makes Nigeria the ideal location for manufacturing and logistics hub for Chinese businesses in West and Central Africa. A lot of multinationals already have Lagos in particular as their base for West and Central Africa. And we always tell investors coming to Nigeria when they come to see us at LCCI that Lagos is not just about Nigeria. Lagos is about West and Central Africa.
The forum concludes with a renewed commitment to foster stronger ties and explore new opportunities for collaboration between China and Nigeria, paving the way for a prosperous and mutually beneficial future.
Well, the Super Eagles of Nigeria have been held to a goalless draw by hosts Rwanda in the second round of matches in Group D at the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier played at the Amahoro National Stadium in Kigali earlier today. Now, the three-time Africa champions who had enjoyed a 3-0 win against Group D opponents Benin Republic in Abuja on Friday had several scoring chances but were denied by the Rwandan goalkeeper. Well, despite the draw, the Super Eagles will maintain top spot in Group B with 4 points. Rwanda will be on 2 points. Well, Libya and Benin Republic will be in action in the other Group D fixture at 8 p.m. Well, we end the program now with prominent Egyptian archaeologist and former Antiquities Minister Zahi Hawass launching a petition for the return of the pharaonic bust of Queen Nefertiti from the Nunes Museum in Berlin to Egypt. Nefertiti's famous painted limestone bust was uncovered at the Tel El Amarna around 300 kilometers south of Cairo back in 1912 via German archaeological mission, which reportedly shipped it to Berlin the following year. Now, in his petition, Mr. Hawass is asking for the return of the bust, saying it was removed from Egypt illegally after the discovery. His campaign is focused on repatriating three main beautiful objects, including the bust of Nefertiti, the Rosetta Stone, and the Dendera Zodiac. And that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.